Anybody have the score? There is a river that makes glad the city of God. Scene 1. The River Jordan at Gilgal, around 1200 BCE. A ragged desert people led by a steely prophet named Joshua stand on the banks, looking across to freedom and the promised land. The priests, bearing the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence among the people, set foot in the water. And as they do so, the waters part, as they did for Moses. As they began their journey to freedom 40 years before by a miraculous crossing, so they come to the joyous conclusion of their exodus to begin their possession of the land of promise. No longer slaves, no longer sojourners in the wilderness. The people of God have arrived in their new home. They look back across the water to the bitter years of forced labor and to more bitter years of confusion and wandering in the wilderness of their own stubborn making. And now they look forward. They look forward to a life of self-determination, of freedom, and of creating a culture founded on a vision of justice and right relationship. Scene 2. The River Jordan, about 30 of the Christian era. Another steely prophet stands by the river's banks. But the people he leads back to this water are not free. They are members of an oppressed vassal state under the boot of Rome. The religious and political establishment has been co-opted by the empire, their freedom of speech and assembly controlled by an absolute regime, an occupied nation. They live under constant threat of arbitrary violence, exile, and even obliteration as a people. And yet this wild man in a camel's hide has the courage to invite them to stand at the place of their national birth. It is as though they are standing on the National Mall in the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial. They are in that place of memory that bathes them in the truth of who they really are. Not slaves, not second-class citizens, but God's beloved and chosen people. This is not a safe thing to do. The Romans notoriously slaughtered people who dared to make such visible protest. Even more dangerous, John is proclaiming a coming liberation, a new kingdom in God's name that is at hand. He tells the people to wash away the despair, and to turn from living like people who have nothing more than survival to think about. He prepares them for a new exodus into a free land that is characterized by justice and peace. And as he preaches, and as he teaches, and as he baptizes, he sees the one who is to usher in this new world, and he points him out to his disciples, saying, "Behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world." For John baptizes for forgiveness of individual sinners, but this one will lead God's people into a new creation. Scene 3. August 23, 1963. The Lincoln Memorial, Washington, D.C. Another steely prophet stands on the steps overlooking a symbolic river called the Reflecting Pool. It is a place that honors a president who presided over the bloodiest conflict in our nation's history, one that threatened to destroy our union and which resulted in the final demise of slavery. The 250,000 people who stand with Martin Luther King this day come from every corner of the nation to join their voices with his in a call for justice. They call for an end to racial segregation in public schools. They call for meaningful civil rights legislation, and they call for the protection of civil rights workers from police brutality. When their prophet speaks, he tells of a dream. Like Moses, he knows that he will not see the promised land, but he calls us all in God's name to keep working for that kingdom.